Well, thank you, Wilfried, for this kind introduction. Thank you for all being here. So yesterday, indeed, there was already a lot of information we gathered. So I think that today we are more in a real training session where we're speaking about tools and things to know about eco-design of packaging. So I was dividing this class into 3 different points. At first, why eco-design introduction and definitions, because there is a lot of big words around, and so I wanted to come back to some definitions. Then give you an overview of some general tools of eco-design, and finish by a section about the specific needs of the packaging sector when it comes to eco-design. So let's start in the beginning with the first question: why eco-design? Why do we want to do such a thing? And I put in first and in bold a very easy thing. It is to protect the environment. So this is quite clear. It is normal and straightforward. But sometimes I think it is better that we all of us remind us that this is the ultimate goal, and all this discussion we might have should bring us one step further to this ultimate goal, which is the protection of the environment. So after this are coming all the other good reasons one can have to do eco-design. So there will be the compliance and the anticipation of the legislation, and we had yesterday a lot of updates on the legislation and on the policy push. There is a growing market demand of environmental friendly products. It helps you enhance enterprises' images, to redesign industrial processes, reduce manufacturing and logistics costs, detect new opportunities of value creation. These things are true for all design processes. Just when you come back to your industrial processes, to the design you'd have, and you think it all over again, often one discovers new possibilities for optimization. So this can be also a very nice tool, in fact, to come back and to look on with a new with a fresh eye and on the different processes already running in a company. And then eco-design can also set apart from competitors, help you to develop new markets of higher added value, and in general also stimulate the innovation inside the company. So yesterday there was a lot already information about the policy push. So for detailed information, please look on the webinar of yesterday evening. I just put out the 2 main policy drivers we have for the moment for eco-design of plastics packaging. This is the Single-Use Plastics Directive of the European Community, and the new regulation on packaging and packaging waste, which was voted in the European Parliament last week, and we are now in a very active legislative process. And so in all those 2 regulations, you will have the idea to reduce the use of single-use plastics, to prevent the waste generation, and to promote reuse and refill systems for food packaging, which calls indeed for eco-design. And then there is also in the packaging and packaging waste regulations an idea to reduce excessive and unnecessary packaging. In that case, also might be interesting that you come back to your own processes. Working to improve recyclability, minimize the complexity of the packaging, and increase the recycled content. So these things were already said yesterday, so I didn't want to go further into it. So one of the main drivers of all these policy pushes was that the European economy wants to shift from a linear concept towards a circular economy concept. So a linear economy, this is the one we are living in for the moment, and it basically says that you design a material, you for our product. You manufacture the product, you're going to sell it, somebody is going to use the product, and then end of the life of this product is going to become a waste and is thrown away in the waste bin, and then somebody takes care of it. So this is linear, where you have an extraction or excavation of raw materials, and they over a short time end up in a waste treatment station somewhere. What is important to know there is that only energy recovery does not count for circular economy. So energy recovery, which is incineration of wastes, this is still a linear economy concept. And also downcycling, very, very harsh downcycling, I would say, is not considered as a circular economy. So when you have at the end of your incinerators, the remainders of the incinerators, and you use this under your roads, you cannot call this a recycling process, okay? So with all these actions, one is still in a linear economy concept. The circular economy concept wants you to have already a separation in the very beginning in the very end of the waste. So it has a biosphere, and it wants you to have all the wastes or the end products which are organically degradable to going back to the biosphere, and all the other objects and products you have are coming back to the technosphere. So the idea here is from the fabrication of the project until its use, and when it becomes a waste, to try to close down the circle and to close it down in a most efficient way. So you have the possibility to repair, to re-employ, to refurbish, and to recycle the materials you're using. And when you're doing this, then one is in a circular economy concept. So this is for the technical parts. And when you have organic wastes, which are the organic wastes, for example, from the food, there are two possibilities here. You need to separate the bio-wastes, and this is also something which is in the regulations. And then over anaerobic digestion and biogas production, you bring it back to the soil, or over composting experiments, you can also bring back the carbon to the soil. So in that case, one would speak about a circular economy concept. This has 7 pillars. So when you're working in a circular economy, you should have a sustainable sourcing of the raw materials one is using. There should be then an eco-design of the products which includes the whole life cycle of the product, and this is obviously what I'm going to speak about now. Then also part of the circular economy is try to set up an industrial and a territorial ecology, which helps to share flows on an industrial site, for example, and optimize resource use. Try to look on the economy of functionality, favor use over property. This is typically what can be seen by, for example, car sharing platforms, things like this. In that case, what you need is to use a car to go from A to B, but it is not in all moments necessary to be the owner of the car. So this means that you are favoring use over property. Responsible consumption. So as a consumer, favoring products and services often reduce environmental impact, increase the lifetime of the products, so repair, reuse, and refurbish. This is what you have seen before. This is closing the cycle in the most small or efficient way possible. And when this is not possible at the very end of the life cycle, try to have recycling of the materials. And this could be recycling in the technosphere or even recycling in the biosphere. So circular economy. So I wanted to make a point because people are speaking about circular economy, sometimes about bioeconomy, times about sustainability, and I wanted just to come back to all these words to give you some definitions when they exist, and also make the difference between all of them. So when we start with the bioeconomy, this is an economy which encompasses all the activities of production and transformation of biomass. Biomass is resources coming from forestry, agriculture, and have as a purpose food production, animal feed production, bio-based materials, or energy production. So this is not circular economy. This is the definition of the bioeconomy concept. When you are with the circular economy, I have here three different types of definition, which are coming from different sources. So the French Ministry of Ecology defines circular economy as to produce goods and services while limiting the consumption of waste and raw materials, water and energy sources. So this is a very open definition. The ADEME, which is in fact the agency of waste treatment and environment in France, is defining circular economy as an economic system of exchange and production, which at all stages of the life of the products aims to increase the efficiency of the use of resources and reduce the impact on the environment while developing the well-being of individuals. So you've been seen before that the pillars of the circular economy and the circular economy concept were pictures coming from the ADEME. So this is, I think, one of the definitions France is going to head forward to. And what is also very interesting in this definition is that there comes up this idea of the well-being of the individuals, so that it's not only there to consider the circularity of goods and resources, but that this should be also something which is good for the society as a whole. And then I got also one definition which is coming from the European Commission. So here they are writing that the circular economy is a model of production and consumption which involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials and products as long as possible. So here you're a little bit like with the French Ministry of Ecology, and you see this was the different pillars I was presenting to you. But in the EU definition, this idea of being also a good thing for the society is absent. So for the moment, there is no really official one, but I think all these definitions give you some clues of what it is all about. And just to set it up, there is the problematic of sustainable development, which is a development that needs the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So this is the very initial definition of sustainable development. And you see, this is not matching the ones of circular economy. So circular economy is very much a concept which is centered on the economic activity, and as the sustainability is something which is behind, but it is a driver, but it should not be used as synonyms, okay? Because sustainable development is something which is much larger than circular economy and also much larger than bioeconomy. Okay, so having spoken about all these definitions, now I'm going to, one of the tools of the circular economy is obviously the eco-design of products and services. So eco-design is a design approach which which considers from the very beginning of the design process the environmental impacts of the products during the whole life cycle of the product, and this is what my picture here is all around. So when you're going to eco-design, you should very think about how my product is going to be used and how it is going to be disposed of, and take into account all these different assets in order to come up with a new design proposal. What is very important also is that the objective is to reduce the ecological footprint of the product at an equal functionality or service delivered, and this needs to be proven. Okay, basically what the equation here says, which is a very easy one, is that you need to count or calculate in some point the ecological impact of the product you have, and then you have a new design proposition, and you calculate also the ecological impact of the new proposition. And so when the whole ecological impacts of the new ones are smaller than the ancient version, you can claim eco-design, which means that in conclusion it is sufficient to reduce at least one impact, one ecological impact, without increasing or creating another in order to have done an eco-design of products and services. So this is very easy to be said. It is often quite difficult to be done, and it requires you having a holistic integrative point of view and doing a multi-criteria and multi-step analysis of your product use in all its use phases. So how can it done? Well, there are tools for doing this. This is a very simple sketch of the design process, showing you that in the very early design stages, you have quite high degrees of freedom, and it is interesting to have the thinking about the environmental impact already in these very early stages, because you can do whatever you like in some point, and when you put it inside here, then you are already on a track which most probably is going to bring you to a more environmental friendly product, because as your design process goes its way, the degrees of freedoms are diminishing and the cost of change and the environmental locked-in is increasing. So change something at the end of the impact is more, at the end of the design process, can be more costly than changing it in the beginning. So for AgroParisTech, with this, you have the possibility to use tools, and there are different tools. There are tools for the very early development stages, which are called generative tools, and there are tools for the late development stages, which are more evaluative tools and models which can be applied. So this brings me to my second part here, which is the general tools of the eco-design. So for I'm going to speak about the generative tools at first, which are the one you can apply in the very beginning. So basically, those are principles, checklists, and guidelines. They are very useful for the frontline integration of sustainability consideration in your design and ideation phase. Can be helpful for idea generation, but be aware that they need high expertise. It is very rare that people who do not know much about the subject come up with a sound eco-designed proposal. And because those are checklists, there is also attention to be paid on cherry picking. So ideally, you should check all the points on your checklist and not just one, whenever it is possible. So what could be such checklists? There is some easy to apply rules. The first one is whenever you can do an ecological improvement, do it, even if it's small. It should not prevent you for doing the big movement also, but when it is quite easy and well done to do even a small step, then do also the small step. Use life cycle thinking and multi-criteria analysis to prevent the shifting ecological burdens from one step to the other, and define the functions of the product with regards to the service for the user and not with regards of what you already have. This can then bring you to a more innovative eco-design and quantifying the end ecological impacts. So qualitative generative rules are, for example, such rules of the thumb as I'm showing to you here, which is the 6 R's. Rethink products and its functions, repair, so design for easy repairing, replace harmful substances, reuse, so ease disassembly, return and use again systems, reduce energy and materials you need to do the product, and recycle, so use recycled materials, design for recycling. So this is just one of the generative rules you could use in your idea generation process in order to bring you already on a track for better environmental quality of the product. So I had another one, which is also a little bit in the same style. This is just to tell you that there are quite a bunch of different rules and guidelines you want to use. So whatever you use will be possible and useful, I think, for the design process. It's always a little bit the same type of tool. In the later stages of the design process, so when you already know something about your product and something about your processing and use phases, you need to evaluate the ecological impacts of the product and its services. And the best tool we have for this is the life cycle assessment. So this is a tool you can apply in the end because it needs quite precise specifications. So therefore it is useful in the later stages and as a comparison tool for specific design decisions, but it is quite hard to use it as a standalone front-end design tool because in the very beginning you do not know much about how the thing is going to be made and how it is going to be used. But it is a very, very important tool, and that's why Fatima Porras is going to speak about this just in the speak after me. Then the circular economy has also its own new indicators, which are the circularity indicators. So here I show you some examples of indicator types. There can be examples found by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and also other toolkits which are already out for the circular economy. And most of those indicators are something like material circularity indicators. So I was choosing here for you one of the projects of our university, which is having your circularity indicators online. And so you can go to this website and then you need to furnish, to provide some informations about your product, and then those types of tools can you calculate a circularity indicator of your product and of your process. Sorry, just to say what is behind the machine is most of those circularity indicators have the structure of mass flow indicators. So in some point they are going to calculate how much material is going to put into the system, how much material is going to flow out from the system, and how much material is going to be circulated inside the system. And then you do you sum up all those different mass flows, and you can come up with those mass flow indicators, which are then often translated in circularity indicators. Okay, so this is another mechanism, and it is something which is starting also to be much more and more used. So, okay, 7 minutes left. So my last part was now on this, when having spoken about the tools, to speak about the specific needs of the packaging sector and how you can apply those tools. So I was telling you several times that there needs to be a holistic analysis of the impact of the service offer, because in fact, packaging is always used together with its content. Packaging is not a project in itself. When there is no content, the packaging just doesn't exist. So one can look at it as a service, and as a service, it has direct environmental impacts which are linked to the packaging material, its fabrication, and its disposal. But there are also indirect environmental impacts which are caused by the service, food, and packaging. And those indirect impacts can be, for example, food loss because of not efficient enough packaging, or loss of transport efficiency. So that's why I think you have seen this curve already several times. When you have an environmental impact of your whole service offer, which means the food plus the packaging, and you do it versus here it is the environmental impact of the packaging material or the weight of the packaging materials, you can see that when you can come to an optimum design where the packaging helps the food to be protected and not to be lost. And so in that case, you are decreasing the environmental impact of the whole service offer. But whenever there is too much packaging, then the environmental impact is increasing again. And that's why we need to seek for this optimum packaging design. One here also rule of the thumb would be using the packaging relative environmental impact indicator. This means that you can calculate what is the environmental impact of the packaging versus the environmental impact of the food which is packed inside, and then you see something which may be quite obvious when you have products which are environmentally very, very costly to produce, like animal products like meat, for example, milk or butter, then the relative environmental impact of the packaging is not very high. So in those cases, it would be interesting. It can be interesting to have a packaging with high technicity, which may have in itself a high environmental impact. But when it helps to protect very efficiently this food, then the overall environmental impact of the system can be lower than when you are doing an underpacking. And the other side of this graph is soft drinks, and I think the very much opposite of meat is water bottles, for example. In that case, the production of the food, which is the water, is not very costly from an environmental point of view. However, the environmental impact of the packaging is, and so for water bottles, the environmental impact of the total service offer is much more linked to the water, to the bottle than to the water. And that's where all those refill bottles make sense, make a lot of sense. Here the eco-design methodology needs to take into account the packaging level, so primary and the interactions between the primary packaging and the food, the secondary packaging and the tertiary packaging, so the transport packaging. It needs also to take into account the system level, so what is important for logistics, consumer behavior, and the waste treatment. When you head for the methodology, eco-design needs always senior management involvement in order to be successful, and in order to take into account all those different design levels, there are some tricks and hints which can be applied. For example, you can change the definition of the functional unit, and so when you define it as a packaging and distribution of 1 ton of product from a manufacturing company to the final consumer, it is going to include from the very beginning all the problematics you could have with the logistics and the transport packaging inside your eco-design. And one other trick could be that for the design process, you could consider packaging as a waste stream at the end. And so this is something which will need to be minimized, and it will also bring you on a track where you're going to be more likely to have a more optimized environmental design at the end. So I'm going to skip over the design processes. I think this is clear for you. You need to clarify your problem, ideate, have some ideas, develop a project, realize the project, and then evaluate if your new design proposal has less environmental impact than the initial one. Okay. So in your very first beginning of these design steps, you need to define the objective of the eco-design process. So objectives need to be relevant, attainable, and measurable, so which means communicable. In that case, you need to do a functional analysis of the package of the packaging and of the service the packaging is going to give to the consumer. Check the critical points of the packaging from the technological side, from the practical side. Check the flexibility of your critical points, because sometimes decreasing quality can help you to decrease the environmental impact. And then when you have clarified your objectives, you can then think about a several number of design elements. So optimize resource use, sustainable resourcing, responsible use, recycling or design for recycling or organic waste treatment. And each design element has its own checklists, which is one of the major tools I was presenting you before. For example, when we are on responsible use, you can think about the reuse solutions, so resealing systems, easy to wash systems, designed to avoid littering, avoid small loose parts, attach closures to your packaging, designed for easy portioning and emptying in order not to lose the food which is contained inside the packaging. So for all of those elements, you can have some checklists, and you have a website which is providing you some of those checklists in the bottom. So when you define your environmental targets, you have your different design elements. Then you need to develop the strategy, apply your strategy elements, and check achievements. This is always iterative steps, and in the end, you need to measure and implement a transparent and responsible communication. Conflicting targets must be handled. So this here is also an example how to handle the conflicting targets. It is very important to be transparent in the presentation of conflicting results. It can help you to define minimum requirements for some of those targets and resolve then those transparently presented conflicted targets by decision making and referring to the design priorities of the project. One alert here is this is a spider diagram, can be very useful for doing this. However, you should never ever rely on the integral of the spider diagram because it is biased, so it is not informative. Always only rely to where the points are, never to the integral. Some feedback coming from a successful, sorry, I'm over time, from successful project. What is interesting in order to have impact is that you need to foster internal coordination. So the more cross-functional the teams are you're working with, the more you have a chance to come up with a new and very efficient proposals. You should also try to get on board your suppliers and customers, including the logistics, in order to avoid the shifting burdens. And a high innovation culture in a company is in favor of eco-design. And then you need also to think about what the customer is going to perceive from the eco-design attributes. So the customer has in his head some types of environmentally friendly materials. So when you use them, you have a chance to be understood. He understands also labels and colors. So labeling is something which is of high importance because this is helping you to communicate the outcomes of your design strategy. And one main recommendation to brand owners: in any case, you should avoid greenwashing and always be transparent with your design targets, and also be transparent when you have conflicting results. In that case, you're going to be believed, and you need to you have a chance to be successful in the eco-design. So sorry for being over time. So very much thank you for your attention. And I give back the floor to my colleagues.